Welcome back to Trinity Ironworks. In today's video, we're going to be talking about hammers. And not just hammers in general, blacksmithing hammers in specific. Blacksmithing is one of those trades where there's just so many tools for so many specific jobs. I mean, just look around. You've got hammers and tongs everywhere. So many different tongs, so many different hammers, so many different striking tools, top tools, punches, drifts, for so many different specific jobs. And today we're just going to start off with blacksmithing hammers in specific. And we're going to talk a little bit about punching tools and handled punches and top tools and set tools and stuff like that. So to start off, you've got just your classic mini sledge. Within the 1.5 pound to 2 pound, 2.5 pound range, this hammer is a 2.5 pound mini sledge. One thing that I really like to do with my mini sledges, or just my daily driver hammers for doing a majority of drawing work and bending work and stuff, I have one face that is for bad stuff, for driving punches, driving drifts, hot cutting, and then I have my good face, which is for doing all of your clean work, drawing your tapers, bending, cleaning stuff up, straightening stuff out, all of that important stuff where you don't want the marks on your bad face transferred to the metal that you're working. You want that nice and clean, crisp, smooth. You don't want those bad marks transferred into the metal that you're trying to work, unless you're trying to have something textured. So, many hammers. So we've got our mini sledge. Not to be confused with the square circle hammer that also has two faces that you can use. The square circle hammer has one flat face and one round face for rounding, and the other side can be used for drawing and whatever other work you need to use it for. This is a square circle hammer. This is a smaller square circle hammer. It's about maybe 1/4 pound, one flat face, and one rounded face. You have straight peen hammers. This is a good example here of a straight peen hammer. This is a hammer that I made. A peen, the peen of the hammer is this right here, this part. Like you have ball peen hammers. This is your peen. This is a straight peen hammer. This is your peen. You have cross peen hammers. Your peen. Okay, you get the idea. So a straight peen hammer is used to draw the metal out in an elongated way. So you're drawing the metal out to make it longer with a straight peen hammer. Now, with a cross peen hammer, the peen is set up horizontally, and these can come in many different radiuses. This is about a 3/16 radius on this cross peen hammer, but a cross peen hammer is used to draw the metal out or spread the material in a horizontal manner. You're trying to widen the material. You're trying to make the material wider. You're trying to spread that material so that you have it to be wider or flatter. So that's the difference between a cross peen hammer and a straight peen hammer. Now let's talk about a ball peen hammer. A ball peen hammer can be used for many things. It can be used to rivet stuff. It can be used to dish something, such as a ladle, such as a bowl. It can be used to get into tight spaces in scrolls and flatten and straighten out a small scroll. Very useful hammer, and these come in very many sizes as well. Back here, this is a bigger ball peen hammer. Has a bigger ball on it. Useful for anything that you need a bigger ball to move the metal, to form the metal, to bend the metal. So we'll just throw that one down there because we're getting a little bit full here on the anvil. This is yet another ball peen hammer. This ball peen hammer has a tighter ball rather than the one I just threw on the ground, but it's bigger. So just for a specific job. whatever you find you need it for. So these can go bye-bye for now. And then you have your bigger hammers. You get into your 4-pound hammers. This hammer I love for drawing stuff out. I made the faces on this hammer set up similarly to my Daily Driver mini sledge. And so one face is used for driving punches, driving drifts, hot cutting. The other face is used and kept good for drawing out the material. And the reason I kept the faces round on this material is because when you are working the metal, when you're trying to draw something out fast and efficiently and effectively as possible, you want a radius. Because what a radius does on the face of a hammer is it helps to pinch that metal down. It pinches that metal in a way that it squeezes it out further, rather than just a flat face just completely smashing it down, while a radiused face on a heavier hammer, or just a hammer in general, will draw that metal out quicker because it's pinching it down. You think about like clay, you think about modeling clay. You take that, when you take that modeling clay and you roll it between your fingers, it pinches down because your fingers are radiused. When you roll that and you pinch it, it draws it out, makes it longer. When you just take that piece of modeling clay and you just kind of smash it between your hands and work it into a little square, or into a little square bar, well, it draws out slower because your hands are somewhat flatter than what your fingers are, because they have a radius and they're small. So that's the difference between a flat face on a hammer and a big drawing hammer, as I like to call this one. And then you get into round-faced hammers. This isn't a great example of that, but this face on this hammer is slightly rounded. This hammer I like to use for dishing and making big ladle dishes, and I also like to use it for working bends out. It's also a cross-peen hammer, so it is a round-face cross-peen hammer. So you have your hammers possibly set up the way that I do, one with a bad face, one with a good face. But if you don't choose that route, you also have your sacrificial hammers. Your sacrificial hammers are used for driving punches, hot cutting, just completely beating the snot out of and not giving a crap. These in the blacksmith shop are usually the cheaper hammers, like this one. They're usually just the hammers that you're going to beat the crap out of. You don't care if they break, doesn't matter. But they're used to just completely drive punches, drive drifts, do hot cutting work, stamping work, all stuff like that. And this hammer face is absolutely beat up. If you were to use this hammer to try and forge and do clean work, the dents in this hammer face would be transferred to that metal and make your metal look severely ugly and very unclean. You also have your sledgehammers. Your sledgehammers are used for doing much bigger work, drawing stuff out much faster, making hammers. You can use a lot of sledges for making hammers. This is a 6-pound sledge. I have quite a variety of 8-pound sledges just floating around the shop. Most of them don't have handles on them. I actually have a 8-pound sledge that is a straight peen hammer. Comes in handy for drawing stuff out. Doesn't have a handle right now, but we'll get to that eventually. This hammer, like I said, I love to use it for making hammers. I love to use it for helping strike, or when I have somebody else in here striking for me. Just a great hammer. And in the blacksmith shop, when it comes to sledges, you don't want to have a long handle. And the reason for that being, a long handle gets in the way. A real long, like 36-inch to 28-inch, 24-inch handle really gets in the way. You don't want a long handle, because a proper striking technique is this. You keep it in line with your chest, you keep it in line with your chin. However, however you choke up on it, however you set up, but you're not coming up like you're swinging an axe. You'll see a lot of guys on construction sites and stuff like that, come up and bring it down like that with their long handle, and that's fine. That's because it's on a construction site or on a masonry job or whatever. That's fine. In the blacksmith shop, you don't want that. You don't want that long handle. It gets in the way. Proper striking technique is bringing your hammer up and bringing it down. Bringing it straight up and bringing it straight down. You're not coming out here. That gives you very less accuracy, and it may give you a little bit more power, but if you learn how to properly strike, you can really bring a lot of power down like that. So, many different types of hammers, all used for a very wide variety of specific purposes. Each hammer, well, most hammers, have a very specific purpose. Like, take for instance, this hammer here, this little square circle hammer. I wouldn't use this hammer very often. The only time I would really use this hammer is if I am doing some very small scrolls, or I am dishing a ladle, or I'm dishing a spoon, or anything like that. I wouldn't use this hammer very often. Now, this hammer I use just about every time I forge. It comes in very handy for doing bigger scrolls, straightening stuff, drawing stuff out. Just an extremely useful hammer, and can cover a very wide range of practices in the blacksmithing world. Now, you'll see some guys out there on the internet trying to be Mr. Macho Man. Mr. Oh, I can swing a 8-pound sledge with one arm. And you'll see a lot of that in comments on blacksmithing videos, or stuff on Instagram posts and Facebook and stuff like that. Oh, dude, why are you using a 3-pound hammer with one arm? I could swing an 8-pound sledge all day with one arm. Bull crap. You couldn't. I tell you right now, you could not. You couldn't do it. You literally couldn't. Now, there's reasons why we don't do that in the blacksmithing world, and there's reasons why people who say that, Mr. Macho Man, there's reasons Mr. Macho Man can't even do that. And he might do it for a little bit, but he's going to be pretty tired in about 10 minutes. When you don't have that muscle build up, when you don't have that full muscle memory build up yet, and just the general sheer strength and practice in blacksmithing of using a much heavier hammer with one arm, it ain't happening. It's not going to happen. And it's also really not good for you. If you are trying to overwork yourself, and if you are trying to use a much heavier hammer than is needed, like let's say you're making an S-hook and you're using a 3-pound hammer, if you're making just a little S-hook, if you're making an S-hook just like this, and you're using a 3-pound hammer, dude, you're nuts. You're nuts. I don't care how strong you are. I don't care if you could pick up a dadgum hay wagon. It doesn't matter. You don't need to do that, and you're overworking yourself, and you're only trying to make people, I don't know, like you more. I don't understand that. I don't understand the whole macho, I can swing an 8-pound sledge with one arm thing. It doesn't make sense. But, and I'm not trying to diss on the guys that can swing a heavier hammer. Like, I'm not saying that. I'm not insecure about myself about that, because I can swing a heavier hammer. I can swing this 4-pound hammer all day long and make an axe. Make a couple axes, make hatchets, make hammers. I can swing a 4-pound hammer all day with one arm. I can actually take this 6-pound hammer, and I've done it many times, and like I said, how I love to use this hammer. Absolutely love this hammer for making hammers. It comes in extremely handy for squaring up a billet and driving punches. But this is not the hammer I would use the entire time to make a hammer, to make an axe, to make a bigger hatchet. This is not the hammer I would use the whole time. I would only use this hammer when I'm going to square up a billet, when I'm going to hot cut a piece of 2-inch, when I'm going to drive a big drift through. This hammer, I'm not swinging it the whole time with one arm. And that's perfectly fine. You don't need that. You don't need to do that. You can do a lot of work with a smaller hammer. And in some cases, you can actually do more work with a smaller hammer because you're more consistent with it. And you almost get a little bit more power out of a smaller hammer. You almost get a little bit more power out of a 2.5-pound hammer versus a 6-pound hammer because you can snap your wrist. You can snap that hammer faster than you can snap a 6-pound hammer. And you can bring more velocity into that blow. Versus bringing this down, yeah, there's a lot of weight behind that, but you're not getting a lot of snap. You're not getting a lot of that velocity and punch and pack that you can with a 2.5-pound hammer. So, Mr. Macho Man, you do not need to swing an 8-pound hammer all day long with one arm. You can't even do it. And if you can, you're not going to be doing it for long. Same thing with a 6-pound hammer. I admit it. I'm not doing this all day long. No way. It's not fun. It's not fun, and it's not good for you. It can really tear muscles. It can really tear stuff up in your arm. Please don't do that. Please don't be Mr. Macho Man and say, oh, I'm going to swing this hammer all day. John Henry, 8 pounds, one arm. Forget that. That's a bunch of bull crap. You don't need that. So, moving on to stuff that is commonly misconcepted as a hammer in the blacksmith shop. Things that are commonly misconcepted as hammers in the blacksmith shop are set tools, striking tools, and handled punches and handled drifts. This is a handled punch, not a hammer. This is not a hammer. Not a hammer at all. I mean, you could try using it as a hammer, but it ain't gonna be fun. Not a hammer. This is a handled punch. This is also a handled punch. As we have more hammers fall everywhere. This is also not a hammer. It may look like a hammer. It may have a face on the back of it, but it's not a hammer. This is also a handled punch. Not a hammer, not to be used as a hammer, was never designed to be used as a hammer. Do not use it as a hammer. It is not a hammer. And please don't misconcept that. They are not hammers. They are handled punches or striking tools or, stuff like that. You also have flatters. You have butchering tools. You have like a handled butcher for making a tenon to make a sharp shoulder. You have, they're just endless. You have a top fuller and a bottom fuller. You have a top cut and a bottom cut. They're endless. You have so many, and I spend so much time making them, and I'm still not even caught up with the tools that I need already. So, many different types of hammers. So many. So many. And if you don't have all of this just starting out in your blacksmithing career, that's perfectly fine. It's not a big deal. You don't need all of this stuff yet. As you build that skill and as you learn how to make tools and as you learn how to do all of this, it will come with time, it will come with practice, it will come with strength, and eventually you're going to build those tools. And flea markets and auctions and stuff are great places to find this stuff. You can find a lot of tools, usually for a pretty good price, and you can get yourself some set tools and some punches and some hammers and some punching hammers and some handled punches and hammers. Just go buy them. Go buy them, and if you can't buy them, practice and make them. So that's just an overview of blacksmithing hammers and all what we've got today. We're going to dive into this even more eventually in the channel. We've got something new starting out on the channel here soon. We're going to be having something new start. I'm not gonna say yet what, but it's gonna be exciting and it's gonna be fun. So something new coming out on the channel here within a month or so. And just thank you guys. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. I love all of you. Forge on.